Hi, it's Jeff White again with Life and Living Now and Versatile Fighting Arts. And I wanted to make a short little video um, for those that don't like to read, or give you another way of kind of listening or viewing this. But this one is talking about the lower Dantian and you know where is that? What is it? In Qigong, we talk about it a lot and we kind of go, yeah, it seems like it's all this mystical, magical stuff. What is it? Well, the more research I did into it, we find that, you know, it, there is a Western science answer for it that I would like to submit for your consideration. Now, understand, I still firmly believe part of the benefit of Qigong is you are learning to become more aware of your body, of your energy, okay, of this thing and your mind and your emotions. It's all energy vibrating at different speeds. And so with Qigong, we become more and more deeply aware of these personal energies. And then we can begin to harness them and use them. So, lower Dantian. Qigong, we refer to the area just below the navel, about 2 to 3 inches in, about an inch and kind of 2 to 3 fingers, and then more towards the center of the body, okay, below the navel and the abdomen. And it's a place or reservoir of energy for the body. In Qigong, it is an important concept, vitally important concept, and a place of meditative awareness. Under Qigong theory, it is considered a place of storage and refinement of Qi or energy. And I have proven this out with that you develop greater strength, greater by focusing on your core. I have proven this out in weightlifting. When I would focus just on the lower dantian with my breathing, and I was able to lift more. We worked with this in our martial arts. We know we move from our core, the lower dantian. There's so much that we do with this, and so there is, it is the center of mass, center of gravity, typically for the human body. Um, so it plays a lot of important parts. And now, when we combine this understanding with Western science, then we have this fascinating intersection of ancient Eastern practices and modern neurobiology. So, they do indeed speak different languages. One is of energy, one is anatomy, but there's a significant correlation between the two. They both describe an important energetic hub and an energetic hub of health and consciousness. So in Qigong, the lower Dantian, as I mentioned, is the primary energy reservoir or storage container for our life energy. It's located 2 or 3 inches below the navel towards the center of the body, considered the center of gravity and the root of the body's vital force or Qi. When we sink our breath, we put our focus on lower dantian. So when I breathe, now we know that we're not breathing into our belly. We've covered this before. We said we're belly breathing. We're using the diaphragm and we're pushing the belly out so the diaphragm gets activated even more. We get this good, clean, deep breath. It feels as if we're breathing into our abdomen, but in truth, we're really not. Okay, so kind of understand that we're still speaking somewhat illustratively with this. But when we sink our breath, when we settle it and we move and we breathe from the diaphragm, and we put our focus on lower dantian when we do our deep diaphragmatic breathing, we create more power, we create more stability and emotional grounding. We're activating that vagus nerve. As we engage in this deep diaphragmatic breathing, we activate that nerve, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest rather than the fight or flight, and the enteric nervous system. Now, what is the enteric nervous system? ENS is at times referred to as the second brain. The enteric nervous system employs 200 to 600 million neurons that are embedded from the esophagus to the rectum, and they supply an incredible amount of information back and forth from the brain. And it's only part of the peripheral nervous system that operates independently of direct brain signals. It produces 90-95% of the body's serotonin and 50% of its dopamine. And these two neurochemicals aid in dictating mood, appetite, sleep, vitally important. So the location of the ENS, or the enteric nervous system, maps exactly to the lower Dantian. So while we may refer to thinking from the belly or gut feeling or intuition, when we do, we're essentially tapping into that enteric nervous system. The vagus nerve can be regarded as the communication bridge between the brain and the rest of the body. The enteric nervous system, the vagus nerve, is the longest single nerve in the body. It is considered to be the information superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system. Its function is to carry signals back and forth from the brain to the gut. And the vagus nerve passes through the diaphragm. So when we engage in this deep diaphragmatic breathing, the movement of the diaphragm itself physically stimulates the nerves. And when it does, it sends an all clear signal to the brain to lower the heart rate, cortisol, for example, if we're stressed. So when we breathe from the diaphragm, we are actually engaging in this rather sophisticated physiological loop. We breathe in with the intent to store energy in the lower dantian. We then stimulate the vagus nerve and begin to massage the enteric nervous system. The enteric nervous system, as mentioned previously, is this vast autonomous network of neurons embedded in the gastrointestinal lining and is often referred to as second brain. So the idea of the brain and the gut is composed of the myenteric plexus, which controls motility, and the submucosal plexus, which controls secretion. The ENS regulates the movement of food, enzyme secretion, nutrient absorption, and blood flow. Incredibly important. So then you see the ENS utilizes and regulates over 30 neurotransmitters, including the majority of the body's production of dopamine and serotonin. So as we begin to focus more and more in this area, becoming more aware, then we can also begin to harness our use of this area. Okay. Additionally, and importantly, as I mentioned, the NS, unlike other nerves, it can only relay information to the brain. The NS can gather information, it can process it, it can make decisions entirely on its own. And impressively, 90% of the information relayed is actually going from the gut to the brain and not the brain to the gut, which is, and to me, is important, showing that this nerve and those processes have an autonomy of their own, separate from the brain. Okay, very important. So, uh, because the DNS is so brain-like, it's involved in much more than just digestion. It can send signals to the central nervous system to trigger mood changes. So thus it will impact anxiety, depression, both in exciting anxiety and through our Qigong breathing, calming anxiety and alleviating depression. So we can have the fire phase where things are getting ramped up, and we have that water calming phase. So the lower dantian is the energetic map, and the vagus nerve and the NS are the biological hardware that makes grounding and vitality a reality for us. When we practice, we are engaging so much more than just our breath. As you can see, the simple act of diaphragmatic breathing engages the vagus nerve, and as we connect more with the lower dantian, we're connecting more with the internal processes of the second brain, creating the effects of a greater sense of harmony between the mind and body, enhanced sense of grounding and centeredness. One of the important keys of Qigong's interoception, the practice of turning our attention, turning our focus to our internal processes in the body by listening to the body. And by doing so, we gain a greater awareness of the internal process, and then with practice, the ability to harness more of its power. So that concludes. I hope this little introduction was beneficial. Please let me know what you think, and have an absolutely wonderful day.